Are we all God in progression? So I heard this perspective, and it comes that the concept, the old fashioned concept of there being some God somewhere up there and some person who is, you know, ordering everyone around, and the big boss, and punishing people and rewarding people, and with a long beard and so forth, is becoming an old fashioned idea. And the new trend is that actually everyone is like a work in progress, and there is everyone, the idea of the mindfulness meditation is the most popular type, and it's taking the world by storm. Its intrinsic foundational philosophy is there is no other external God. It's just you are like a work in progress and attain to higher and higher levels, and you become more inclusive, right? So I want to discuss this subject, today in this video, and I would like to firstly ask you a great favor. If you like the contents of my video, please also remember to like and subscribe to my channel. This will greatly help my channel to be able to reach out to more people. And if you could do me just one more greater favor, share it with just one other person, optional, right? Optional extra. Share it with just one other person or social media channel, whichever you choose, and give me a comment, right? I would really appreciate that, and thank you. So, for those who don't know me, I am Osman. I'm a bioenergy healer on a master level with telepathic healing capabilities, specializing in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses, um, and also amongst a host of other physiological, psychological, and even spiritual ailments. I have a special promotion, a 10-minute anxiety fix telepathically delivered to you anywhere in the world for just $5. Check out my website, yogawellness786.com, for more information on contact and my testimonials and my services. Also, I'm advanced level yoga and meditation teacher, having been practicing this art form for almost 50 years and teaching for 44 years. In that period, I've studied under so many different masters. They're all from different schools of thought, different cultures, and globally, right? Different parts of the world. I've studied from the Eastern people, the Far Eastern people, the Middle Eastern people, and the Western people, right? And my thing was to create something more adapted, for the 21st century, creating new protocols for the, or adapting the, the long-winded method, make it quicker, simpler, easier, faster, more effective, time efficient, and results orientated. To that effect, I created my own, multiple protocols. One of my favorite protocols is a 5-minute yoga and meditation program, which you can download for free in exchange for subscribing to my blog by visiting my website, yogawellness786.com, where you can also get more information about my services. Also, remember that my therapies are all natural based and not a replacement for medical treatment. So, coming back to this problem that we are God, right? So it is. I mean, there's different concepts of God. We're not saying that everyone is saying that, but it is becoming a trending, very popular concept that is becoming more and more appealing to a wider audience. Especially, it's coming through a channel that's offering something that's already taken the world by storm. That is mindfulness through the Buddhist philosophy, and their philosophy is the intrinsic bottom line is the Buddha said that in all his advancement in meditation, he never found any separate God entity, right? That only that you are evolving to higher and higher levels, and your consciousness is expanding to become more and more inclusive, and you are evolving to a higher and higher level of perfection. And I mean, that's how society is evolving from caveman days, to 100 years ago when people were, physical labor intensive, and now, then the office situation, and now online, everything is happening on your smart device, on your handset. Even computers are becoming obsolete. Because computer is something big, you don't want to carry that around. Just slip it in your pocket, and it is so powerful, it can outpace even many modern computers, right? Some of the capacity there, and everything is working with apps and so forth, right? So everything is becoming easier, and progressing. People are progressing. So there is this progressiveness of the human spirit. This is a given, right? This is a given. But I was listening to a podcast today. I always forget the guests of the host, but it's my favorite podcast. The host is, of course, Rick Archer in Buddha at the Gas Pump. So he's also on YouTube and in this thing. I'm not getting paid, but I enjoy his podcast. And he's to date interviewed at 740 people who are awakening or uh, um, have knowledge on awakening, or a scientist who are discussing things scientifically from a scientific perspective on awakening, and relating to OBEs and out of body experiences, and mysticism and so forth, and bringing a more epidemiological approach to it from perspectives from across the globe, and experiences of people who's traveled a lot and so forth, right? So he was interviewing this one journalist. I think it was in interview number 740, and this journalist, um, uh, is following the Tibetan type of Buddhism, right? As his matured choice. It wasn't the original choice. He was originally a Catholic that used to go maybe a couple of times a year to church, according to him. And he met his wife, an Indonesian woman who comes from a majority Muslim background, and she came from a Muslim family, and they both decided they love Buddhism, right? The Catholic guy, the Muslim woman, and they felt that this is the thing. And some of the, I think the Tibetan Buddhism was against the law, illegal. You can get imprisoned, for that. It's amazing how some laws are, encroaching on the freedom of thought and freedom of expression of people, right? That's another story. But anyway, but the long story short, they went into that, and guess what? He's loving Tibetan Buddhism, and quite, yeah, I mean, he's not a big Dalai Lama or a Lama or something, right? He's serious about it, and he's formally in it, and he's initiated into it as well, because the Tibetan Buddhism style is, you have to have a spiritual master who initiates you, right? Otherwise you are lost. Without that, there's nothing, right? So he's following that, which is like a higher level of Buddhism. And guess what? I said, guess what? He's got a PhD in Islamic studies from Wales, right? Not from the Middle East. I didn't know Wales had a PhD level of faculty in Islamic studies, that they're studying it on that level. And he's not a Muslim, he's a journalist. And it just was like how people, it took, now it's becoming like, like you love psychology, right? But you're not a psychologist, right? You studied it. But generally, people who study psychology to PhD level were practicing as psychologists. But it was very amazing that, and he's not a Muslim, right? And he respects all cultures and so forth. But his concept, his statement to Rick Archer was that, and that actually the concept of some other alternate God is over, and actually we are all God as work in progress, and eventually, as you're going higher and higher, you lose your identity, you lose your I, you become one with everything, and you become God, right? And that is the principle of God. So I like to bring about my comment on it. What I'm coming firstly from a faith background who believe in that old-fashioned, the bearded concept and so forth. Right? Of course, I don't believe that God has got a long beard and so forth. But which category I belong to? right? Just to, because you believe the guy up there, long beard, or there's no God, right? Atheists, or we are all God, work in progress, right? One of three, choose one of three, right? Oh, this is not important to you yet, maybe, or this thing, right? So I'm belonging to this category, right? So of course, just to be clear, I believe that, and this is from a Hindu perspective as well as Islamic perspective, and a broader perspective that seems to be more inclusive as well, that is beyond the concept of our mind, right? He is an individual entity beyond the concept of our mind and never imperfect, right? So, logically speaking, if we are all God, work in progress, and becoming God, what kind of God is that forgot and still needs to progress to become God? God means, the concept God means all powerful, all knowing, all, the perfection in all attributes, right? And to bring about error, right? To that, this is not the kind, yes, maybe that is true. I mean, we have to keep an open mind, right? So let's say it is true, right? I don't want to be worshipping that kind of God, right? So, okay, people say don't worship him in that form, worship him in the perfected form, right? But the perfected form, he was imperfect at one stage, right? Logically, I got better things to do, than to. I like the best of anything, right? So always when I want to buy, what's the highest model? Well, the phones are go, which is the best, right? So go for iPhone. iPhone, when I purchased it a couple of months ago, when it was the latest model, iPhone 16 Pro Max, right? And I went the maximum, memory that they had, available, because if you want higher than that, you have to wait a day or two, and we can't even wait 5 seconds, right? We are so busy these days. Okay, we take the highest that you got in the store, right? But from the very reputable dealer, right? From a very reputable country, right? So I'm traveling a lot, and I'm in the Middle East often, and these are considered, some of the places considered third world countries, although they object to it. But officially, that's what it's not called a first world country, right? Um, officially speaking, and the conditions are not very economically prosperous as well in many of these Middle Eastern countries. So I'm suspect to go to a store and purchase, because I may purchase. I'm afraid that it'll be a gray product, although it seems to be a very big store and so forth. Not trusting. Rather get from a first world country directly and purchase it. Now there is, just a sidetrack, right? There is a courier system. Like, I like buying things from the US, but they say this is only for delivery in US. It's not for anywhere else. There's a this thing, I'm not getting paid to mention this, right? I'm not a sponsor for this company, but Parcel Monkey, they got addresses in other countries. They got addresses in the US, that you can use the US address to get your US product delivered to that address, and then they will handle the shipping, the customs, and whatever paperwork that needs to be done to have it brought to your door. They handle everything. They just, and at a very affordable price as well, relatively speaking. If you have to go through all the complications, and that type of thing was never brought in. So they bring, of course, everything legal or only, right? So they handle all that logistics, and the complication. That's amazing, that you can get it. So coming back, we want the best of everything, and we can, with technology, we can get the best of everything. Like that, with the concept of God, I want the best God, right? I got options, right? So I've got that God who is a work in progress God, right? So I'm in this massive store, and one of the aisles is God. Which God do you want, right? So we can pick and choose, right? We got choice. We got the internet, and we can choose. This is a choice, right? So I go into aisle where there's different gods, categories of gods available. Do you want the Hindu gods where I got 33 million options? Too many options is like, it's a bit complicated for me. Or do I want where the god is a work in progress, Okay, I don't want to be bossed around. I want the work in progress one. So, okay, different strokes for different folks. That's option there. But I want the best, right? Which is the best. And this God who came down on earth and was crucified and he arose from the dead and he was ascended into heaven and so merciful and among everything. This seems a plausible God, right? Because I can identify with that type of God, right? I'm not saying that I'm believing that I'm Muslim. We're not believing in, but I respect, I understand that is a choice. I'm not saying mine is right and yours is wrong, but I'm saying in terms of my choice, right? That choice is, to me, where the God is a work in progress to a God who came and lived amongst us. And, he was a perfect guy, right? From all accounts. He wasn't, sitting in a pub and, getting, motherlessly drunk. And did it, of course, he had wine with, socially with the meal, in the Last Supper, they enjoyed wine and laughter and fun. He's a guy like a regular guy among us, but the alpha guy that everyone looked up to. He commanded the presence, and when there was shortage of wine, he was able to produce more wine. I mean, that's my man, right? Who wouldn't want that? If there's shortage of food, there's unlimited fish, right? Protein. Who doesn't want protein, right? And bread, unlimited bread, right? Got your carbs, you got your protein, you got your minerals, and amazing, and you got wine, right? Who doesn't love a guy? I don't drink alcohol, by the way, right? But this is the kind of guy. Now, this is option in the, see? Oh, I got a guy, so if I'm offending people, right, apologize. I'm trying to keep things, from my perspective. I got a guy, right? And a lot of say, why is a guy? Why can't it be a woman? Okay, there's a woman. You choose that one. The woman god, right? There is a female goddess, right? Kali. Choose Kali. She's very fierce and she's got a very beautiful form as well. And she can be, very fierce, fear personified, right? You can do that is also an option, right? So I'm not offending. I'm just talking my perspective, right? There's this guy who's perfect and never been imperfect, and was didn't go through the process of birth ever. Why should he be born? Right? For him to come to earth is the God. He needs to be born. Can disappear. Okay, you want to be baby. You don't have to go through and create problems for Mary. Go through 9 months of pregnancy and childbirth, the pain. Why do I have to do that? Painless, right? Just be born, right? In a flesh. And why you have to be a baby? Be in adult form as well, appear and disappear, right? These gods, right? And this is the God in Saivism, where the God appears and disappears. Say that they many accounts that God appeared, and disappeared. He didn't, because their concept is God cannot be born or cannot die, right? There's no, they don't believe in incarnation, the Saivite perspective, and he appears, in whatever form. It's a choice, and there's another choice, like from the Islamic faith, that God is there's only one God. They have that verse, and that is beyond the concept of our mind, right? And he is never born and can never die. Huh? I don't want a God that died. He got some weakness. Yes, we can identify that. Different strokes for different folks, right? Just remember that, right? I don't want the one guy that dies. I want a guy that had to be born. We have to wait 30 years before I can hear his stories. And he must tell his stories on appearance, right? When necessary, right? And so he can is neither born and beyond the concept of our mind. Our mind is very limited. I want someone who's not limited, because my mind is constantly expanding. If it's limited to my mind, when my mind expands a little bit more, I'm going to be greater than the God, right? So it must be something limitless and beyond the concept of any possible mind, because our mind keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. Even when we expand to my fellow brothers, the Buddhist method, where we're becoming all inclusive and you're experiencing the samadhi where everything is one, right? It is actually cannot be described. It is like a non-experience, right? The highest level there is in the Hindu concept in yoga. I'm coming from a yoga and meditation background. I have to mention that Sabikalpi Samadhi. Samadhi is like nirvana, right? The highest state. So there's two kinds of nirvana or samadhi, right? Interchangeably, I'm using, although they have many major disagreements in the description of these concepts, right? And the way to it. Let's look at it from a bird's eye view. Although now we're looking at the planet Earth from the moon, right? And looks so beautiful, right? There isn't these differences that we see between these cultures. So it is the Sabikalpi Samadhi and the Nirbikalpi. Sabikalpi is you still have a sense of who you are. And there's a I, you are experiencing, you're having an experience, right? In order for you to have an experience, you have to exist. So you lose the existence as well. You become merged one with everything. So there's no I, there's no experience. It's non-experience. For there to be an experience, there must be a mind or a you or a I or some entity, individual entity. If there isn't that entity, it's a non-experience, right? A comparable from a bird's eye view. So don't get offensive that I'm now trying to bring new interpretation to these major religions, right? The delta state, the no thought, breathless, no breath, no, you're not breathing, heart not beating, and you got no thoughts. In all respects, you're clinically dead, right? And non-experience. And you will open your eyes and you don't know how 3 hours went, 4 hours went, or 45 minutes went, or even, I mean, the early stages, you don't know how 10 minutes went, right? And you just felt like a minute go and suddenly 10, you went into delta, right? And even there, you're coming back. I don't want a God who comes back to a lower level, right? Who can be superior to all the levels and still be with you, right? And the thing, so they got the choice, right? In the supermarket, now there are 100 new religions being formed every year currently in 2025, right? That's the current statistic. So religion means concept of God. So there's 100 new concepts of God every year, right? Nuanced concepts, right? Methodology of worship or whatever it is. So I'm just describing a few, but let's come from a logical. Do you believe that if there's the concept of God, right? We all know what's the definition of God, right? Means perfection, and he's a work in progress. This does not make logical sense from our dimension. We are now in this dimension. According to quantum physics, we are in the third dimension, right? Let's call it according to science. We are now in the third. Let's talk, forget all the other dimensions. Now we're in this dimension, right? Where logic, we are in a linear flow of time. Time is not intermingled, and all is one, and one is all. We're not in that level. Yeah, in this logically. Does the term God equal to a God in work in progress? No. Does the term God equal to someone with weaknesses? No. That is, it does not logically match, right? So it should be, I would present or I propose, right, to the floor of the YouTubers and the audience of YouTubes, right, that it should be someone who is not prone to imperfections, and the God that is defined this way, we need to find the higher God, right, and investigate further, before one just settles on it, because you're making people are spending decades, right, 5 decades, the whole life, in certain things, and maybe following the wrong concept, right? So revisit this type of thought, and I feel like offended. And yes, I love feeling offended means someone has an opposite opinion from me, and this is the right of people's individuality and individual freedom of speech, right? Freedom of thought, right? We shouldn't lose that. And although it's restricted in many ways still, but there needs to be, certain boundaries according to, people. But this is why we disagree. But I disagree completely that it's, there's a God who is a work in progress, you know, type of concept. So I would love to hear your comments on the subject, and hope that information helps you and broadens different perspectives and ideas. That's what these videos about, to broaden our knowledge, broaden our perspectives, and to increase our creativity in order that we improve our capacity, of our brain to be able to, troubleshoot our own personal problems and find creative ideas and solutions to our problems as well, right? Our person, ground, grassroots levels problems. So hope that information helps you, and take care of yourself always.